Welcome to Kirby Air Ride. Over the next 15 minutes or so, we are going to take you through some advanced techniques for this game, going through all three of the modes. So let's jump right into Air Ride mode. Now this game has very simple controls. You use the control stick and the A button exclusively. Just because the controls are simple doesn't mean that it's really easy to master. As you can see here, Kirby's boosting by pressing the A button. You don't want to just tap this button a lot or you're going to slow down. What you will want to do is use it in corners. As you can see, that last corner, it took it kind of sloppily. But if you boost as you go into the corner and then release, you're going to get a nice launch. And if you boost really early and take the corner perfectly, you're going to really get ahead. You don't just use the A button to boost though. Watch what Kirby does here. Right on top of the panel, you hit the A button, turning off the laser display that was going to be in his way. Now there are many features on courses that are like this, so keep your eye out. You can smash through icicles. You can turn light switches on and off like that. You can activate boost panels that'll give your rider a big burst of speed. You can even do things like make walls retract. Keep your eye out for the many things. The A button has another function. Pressing your enemy, you'll swallow that enemy, and either spit it out or copy its ability that you can then use in battle. As you can see here, Kirby is going to swallow a spike enemy. Now he has the spike power. By pressing the A button when you're near rivals or enemies, you can knock them for a loop. Here we have the plasma ability. This can shoot many different levels. By jogging the control stick back and forth, you can build up your charge power and then fire off a really enormous burst of power once your rivals can. You can also fire off smaller bursts. Here's a wheel enemy. Wheel Kirby is very fast and highly mobile. You can take really sharp corners. Freeze enemy. Press the A button when you're near rivals with this power equipped, and you'll momentarily immobilize them. A sword-wielding enemy gives Kirby a sword. He'll automatically wield this sword when he approaches him. The wing power takes Kirby off of his warp star and allows him to flap freely through the environment. If Kirby swallows a tornado enemy, he'll augment his quick attack, which you can use by pressing left and right on the control stick. Swallowing lots of enemies is always a good idea, because it'll give you a brief speed burst whenever you do it. Another way to get a good speed burst is by drafting rivals who are in front of you. When you're lined up directly behind a rival's machine, you'll get a speed burst, as you can see here. Another important technique to master is going airborne. When you go off a jump, pull back on the control stick in order to make Kirby's star float upward. You can also press forward on the control stick to make it float downward. By messing around with this in the air, you can actually fly. Of course, this depends on what star you're riding. Mastering flight will allow you to reach parts of levels that you haven't seen before, and often can prove to be the fastest route. You can also reach elements of the stage, like this grind rail up here, that may help you see. Remember, once you go airborne, you want to angle your star so you can land perfectly. That way you won't lose any speed. Knowing what your machine can do is also an important part of planning your route through a course. Here Kirby is riding the wagon star, which is bulky. It's got a very high top speed, but you can't do boost turns, and it's really bad in the air. So, when going through the course, this is Beanstalk Park. You should stick to the middle of the course and try not to get bound up in corners. Now, if you're riding something like the Winged Star, as Kirby is doing here, you can take a much different route. You still want to use boost panels. Once you go off a jump, you can cover big gaps. And if you use the control stick appropriately, you can stay airborne almost as long as you'd like. Now let's talk about Top Ride mode, which is a top-down mini racing game. First, you'll want to pick your star. This is a free star, which will go in whatever direction you're pulling on the control stick. You can also use the steer star. This one will control much like your vehicle does in Air Ride. When you press right and left on the control stick, you'll steer that way. Now, in Top Ride mode, you won't be copying abilities like you do in Air Ride mode. Instead, you'll be picking up power-up items that get scattered all over the course. If you look at P1 there, he's got buzzsaws now attached to his Air Ride machine. That's only one of the many items that can be used in this mode. You'll see bombs, microphones, Krakow, which is a giant cloud that appears and strikes lightning on everyone, drills, pieces of cake that turn your character huge, charged up batteries, fans that freeze other enemies. There are also some items that power you down, like the tire that you see on the screen. You'll drag that behind your machine and go much slower. The most important thing in Top Ride is finding shortcuts. As you can see, these glowing panels, if you press A on top of them, you'll jump in the air. Shortcuts can also be grind rails that you can shoot across. Like these ones, they'll only appear when you drive into the glowing area. Shortcuts can also be as simple as driving across the correct gear wheel if it's going in the direction you want to go, or avoiding little sprockets that are spinning. Basically, learn each of these mini courses and you'll know what areas to avoid and what to play. Now let me take you through City Trial mode. The idea behind this mode is very simple. You drive around the city for a predetermined amount of time, and then compete in a random stadium at the end of it. As you can see, the city is one big stage. You drive around collecting power-ups that slowly build up your machine's abilities. There we have a charge power-up. You can also switch machines. When you see something new that you'd like to ride, just pull back on the control stick and press the A button to jump off, then board your new machine. Remember, when you're driving around, you want to avoid picking up gray power-ups. These will actually decrease your abilities. Now, when you see a rival player, you want to attack them as much as you can, because you can knock out their attributes and steal them for your own. Here, Kirby is loaded with fireworks. You can also attack with quick spins by tapping left and right on the control stick. You'll want to use everything that you find. By picking up bombs, you can hurl them and cause huge explosions in the city. You can also pick up most of the other copy abilities that you see in the game. And remember, you should explore everywhere. The city is very big, and there are many paths that lead both underground and far above the city. If you can, pick a different ride and try to get a different angle on the action. The important thing to keep in mind is that you're powering up to ultimately compete in a stadium. The problem is you don't know what the stadium will be. So knowing what kind of machine to build up is largely a guessing game. In general, just try to cause as much chaos as you can for the other players as you try to build up your machine to be as powerful as it can be. You'll also want to watch out for events that happen in the city. These are random and will occur several times a game. In this one, the city lighthouse is turned on, giving Kirby a chance to power his machine back up by staying in the rejuvenating beams of light. The events aren't always good, though. Sometimes it'll cause your machines to malfunction. Sometimes huge characters like Dynablade will appear. Once time runs out, you'll go to a screen where you can check your attributes of each of your machines. And then it's off to the stadium. Now, the stadium is randomly determined, so it could be just a race on one of the familiar courses that you've been playing. However, it could also be a drag race, just a straight shot. Winner takes all. In this case, the Turbo Star that Kirby's riding is the best vehicle for the job. You might also go to a stadium like Target Flight, where machines that are specially built for gliding through the air will have the advantage. This one, you want to aim and get the biggest points. Of course, if you trick your machine out to be battle ready, you'll be happy to arrive in Destruction Derby, where you go head-to-head with other Kirby players and try to KO them. Here you'll see all the power-ups in the game, and you'll have to use them to your best advantage. There are also several other stadiums that you'll see, over 20 in all. One of the best things you can do in City Trial mode is go into free run and then just try out each of the machines that you could possibly be driving. They all handle very differently, and learning to ride each of them is where half the fun of Kirby Air Ride comes in. Proceed down into the underground area, and you'll see all your rides lined up, and then you can take each of them out for a spin. Now, of course, finding these rides in any of the other game modes won't be so easy. Now that you've had a good look at all of them, let's take each of them out for a spin. Here's the Wagon Star. As you saw earlier, this vehicle has extremely good top speed, but it can't do boost turns, and it's not very good in the air. Ah, the Formula Star. This machine has the best top speed in the game. However, getting up to that top speed is the problem, so you won't want to use it in areas where you need to maneuver very well. It's great for drag races, or for anywhere that has very long straightaways where you can keep your maximum speed up. The Slick Star has extremely squirrely control, making it very difficult to master. When you do a boost turn with this vehicle, you can see it slides across the ground like it was on ice. This vehicle is for masters only. Now the Bulk Star, this machine is very unorthodox. This machine won't move on its own at all. What you have to do is build up its fuel by holding down the A button to build up your boost power. Once it gets going, however, there's very little that can stand in its way. The Shadow Star is a rather evil star. This has good flight ability and is fairly decent on the ground, but the way it excels is by boosting into other racers, sending them for a loop. The Winged Star is made for the air, and is actually quite a bit faster in the air than it is on the ground. When you're riding this star on main courses, look for every ramp that you can find. The longer you can stay airborne, the faster you'll go. The Swerve Star is very difficult to master. This machine has only 2 speeds, extremely fast and stopped. When you press the A button, you'll stop and pivot, and then instantly accelerate to top speed when you release it. This machine is especially suited to battles. The Turbo Star is one speedy ride, but it can be very difficult to master. When learning to ride this machine, practice cornering several times, as doing 180 turns is very difficult. Rocket Star can get the biggest boost of all. If you hold down the A button to build its boost all the way up, you'll get a huge rocket start. Of course, if you don't let it go in time, the balloon will deflate and you'll get nothing. This is another machine that's well suited to straightaways. The Wheelie Scooter has very tight handling. This is another good machine for battles, as you can turn on a dime. When you take it out in the city, try driving in and out of the alleyways so you can master its somewhat unorthodox control. Now its cousin, the wheelie bike, controls much differently. This scooter gets a much better boost, but is not going to turn anywhere near as well as the wheelie scooter does. Now the daddy of all the wheelie scooters is the Rex Wheelie. This machine is very difficult to learn just because it corners strangely. However, anything that gets in its way will instantly be destroyed. This is the machine to take into battle. The Jetstar is a little slower than usual on the ground, but it gets turbo boost whenever it leaves the ground. This is another vehicle that, if you're using it in the air ride courses, you'll want to look for every ramp you can find and go off them.